like and subscribe.
Hi, I'm the Lunatic Painter, and this is another episode of The Art of Engineering, a place where art and engineering collide. Today, we are going to be looking at the fascinating, the wonderful Jeff Looney Koons. Now, what sort of art does Jeff Koons make, and why am I discussing Jeff Koons on an engineering channel? Well, the thing about Jeff Koons is his art has a lot of technology in it and a lot of science, and that's why it's going to be very interesting to even people who are engineers who profess to having hated art when they were at high school because it didn't make any sense. Well, you know what? You will find, I'm hoping that I can take you on a journey and give you a new appreciation of art and see it from a different perspective and maybe start to understand a little bit better and appreciate it from not only the engineering point of view, but also maybe from the arty, farty point of view. So anyway, Jeff Koons, what sort of art does he make? He makes some amazing stuff. You know, you don't need to have a great understanding of art history to go into a Jeff Koons exhibition and really enjoy it. As long as you start looking at it from a point of view of having fun rather than interpreting it from a highfalutin art historical point of view. You also need to suspend your disbelief at the amounts of money that people pay for his work, because the work literally sells for millions and millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So putting all of that aside, you can go into a Jeff Koons exhibition and you're going to see giant puppies that are made, or balloon puppies, that are made out of stainless steel, cast stainless steel. You might see a basketball floating in a tank, but not at the top of the tank, suspended in, like it's suspended in midair, but in liquid. That's an amazing thing to happen. You'll also maybe see a balloon version of the Venus of Willendorf. And I'm hoping that people of my area will remember that Venus of Willendorf is a statue from the Stone Age that was used as a fertility goddess, and it was discovered in Germany in Willendorf. So all of those things that Jeff Koons creates really have a sense of fun about them. So if you go into a Jeff Koons exhibition, you're going to see highly reflective surfaces, you're going to see colour, you're going to see playfulness, and you're going to see references to popular culture too. You might see a giant sculpture that looks like a kitsch porcelain sculpture, but it's got Michael Jackson and bubbles in it. And if you look through some of his photographic work, you're going to find stuff that's X-rated and probably would be labelled as pornography if it wasn't a Jeff Koons masterwork. So stick with me, and we're going to look at some of the technology and the science behind Jeff Koons. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due, and a lot of this scientific information I found online in an article in The Atlantic titled Jeff Koons Science Projects. So I'm looking for stuff online all the time to be of interest to people that are interested in technology as an entrance to being fascinated about the world of art. And it's kind of reigniting and making me find new appreciation of Jeff Koons' work, because I've always looked at Jeff Koons' work from the point of view of an artist and been very critical of it. So first work we're going to look at is a work that was titled One Ball Total Equilibrium Tank, Spalding DRJ241 Series 1985. And in this work, I'll just show you a picture of it here now. Now, this work was created via consultation with the physicist Richard Feynman. Okay, now Richard Feynman worked on the Manhattan Project for creation of the nuclear bomb. Very well-known physicist. If you have a chance to read his autobiography, or his biography, I think it was, definitely get into that, because he's a fascinating man, a fascinating life, huge intelligence. Anyway, Jeff Koons wanted to have a ball floating in the purity of water, but he didn't want it floating on the surface of the tank. He wanted it to look like it was suspended in equilibrium. Very difficult thing to do. So via this consultation with the physicist Richard Feynman, he managed to get a reagent grade sodium, and basically what happens is the bottom layer of the tank is a denser salt water and the top layer is a fresh water, extremely fresh water, and the ball is suspended between those two layers. Now, each time this installation is installed in the actual gallery space, it needs to be done again. And usually with people walking around, the vibration from their feet, changes in temperature and pressure in the room, etc., can quite often cause the ball to lose its calibration and float to the surface. So you can imagine these curators in this gallery not used to having to deal with artworks that start to do strange things and stop being the artworks they're supposed to be. So you can see also why quite often galleries do not want to have a Jeff Koons show in their space, because of the challenges that the work presents. So that's one work that's used the marvels of physics and consultation with a physicist to make it happen. Now, if you're an engineering student, please let me know down below what type of study of engineering or what area of engineering you're studying in. Always very interested to see what people are studying. And if you're an art student or someone that's interested in art, what type of artist you are, or maybe where you studied art. Because I'm very interested to see who's watching these videos and what they're enjoying about them or what they're not enjoying about them. So I'm open to criticism and I'm open to praise. So please comment away. And oh yes, remember too, in the links below you'll see links to my Redbubble shop, and there's a wonderful shirt there that says I study engineering, which you might be interested in. Otherwise you might be interested in some of the artwork that's on there if you're the more arty farty type of person. You might be both. Take a look at the Redbubble store too, and if you're feeling really generous, buy a sticker. Now, another artwork that provided its own technical challenges is the artwork Cat on a Clothesline, 1994 to 2001. This artwork is made from polyethylene and plastic. Now, polyethylene, it says polyethylene and plastic. Now, obviously, polyethylene is plastic, so I'm assuming that there's other plastics used in it, but the predominant material is polyethylene. Now, polyethylene is a thermoplastic for those engineers out there. We all know that a thermoplastic is one that you can heat to soften. It can be injection molded, all those sort of manufacturing processes. So it's a plastic that will soften on heating and then harden once it's cooled down. Now, normally it's used for things like electrical insulation and toys. And in this instance, it's being used to create a toy, but a toy on a massive scale. So the production of this piece was very, very difficult, because to create the kind of textures you'd see in a toy on that scale was immensely challenging. So the person that had to produce this artwork obviously was challenged greatly by it. And the thing about a lot of Jeff Koons' work is quite often the spaces where it's sent to be manufactured either fail in reaching the level of perfection that Mr. Koons demands. He has actually sent some foundries broke, rumor has it, but it's very, very difficult to achieve the level of perfection required. And considering the amounts that the artworks sell for, it's understandable that those levels are expected. And that's probably one reason why the criticism that's leveled at the amounts of money that goes into the work are perhaps mitigated by the fact that to create the works, he has a huge number of people working in his studios, although rumor has it he's actually reduced that amount of people, because he said he's now going to outsource his work and create it via robots. Very much like what's happening in the modern world today with people who work in factories. But he's basically needing a lot of money and a lot of capital to create these works because they're so demanding technically. I'm not saying that he hasn't made a huge amount of money and a huge amount of profit, but that profit has also come a huge amount of risk, and it's understood that some works he's created have actually run at a loss. But overall, I think he's doing all right. Now, the final piece of work we're going to look at to have an appreciation of the engineering that goes into Jeff Koons' work is Liberty Bell 2006 to 2014. And here is a picture of the bell itself, and it took from 2006 to 2014 to actually get this bell to become a reality, and it looks very much like the real deal. So I'm showing you this now, and I'll just quickly flick over to the real Liberty Bell, just to show you how close a simulacra, a copy, that Koons has actually managed to achieve. And here's the actual real Liberty Bell. And as you can see, Koons has achieved an amazing simulacra of the bell, an amazing copy. It's almost a completely perfect facsimile. And he's had to use the technology of milling as a modern technique, probably using computer-controlled milling machines. He's used Photoshop to create stencils and the assistance of literally hundreds of workers to achieve this final piece of work that looks exactly like the original Liberty Bell. An amazing application of manufacturing techniques and technology. And the artwork's created from bronze, wood, wrought iron and cast iron. So pretty much similar materials that would have been used in the original. Now any people that are non-American, such as myself, probably don't have an appreciation of the meaning of the actual thing that it's being depicted, which is the Liberty Bell, but I'm of the understanding that is a major symbol of independence within the United States of America. Now, to create this replica of the Liberty Bell that's on display, Jeff Koons actually had to 3D scan the object. Now, just using 3D scanning in and of itself is quite an innovation. It's something that a lot of artists haven't done in the past or hadn't done up to that point. And he was at that time already starting to use CT scanning like he did for the Willendorf balloon sculpture. But because CT scanning may have damaged this very ancient artifact, the museum was not allowing him to use CT scanning. He had to use light scanning. And then he decided rather than cast the bell, he actually would mill the bell. So the great thing about the milling was because it's milling to a precise shape, he could actually mill all the imperfections that have been created over time on the bell. And then the actual color of the stand and the shades in the stand, to replicate that age in the wood, he actually used Photoshop and he created hundreds of shades of color that would be required to replicate the pattern on the wood, and made 25,000 stencils, which were then used to paint each spot or each area on the stand for the bell. So you can see why Jeff Koons obviously isn't there with his tiny little brush doing that himself. And this is something we need to understand about Jeff Koons' practice as well. He actually has basically a factory of workers, art students, specialists in their field. When he was doing this work for the Liberty Bell project, he actually consulted a very well-known metallurgist. So he's always at the cutting edge of science and engineering. So like I said, love him or loathe him, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to his commitment to seeing a project through, because we're looking at projects that can take up to a decade and have huge technological challenges. So, you know, Mr. Koons, I at one point in time wasn't that keen on you, but you're starting to grow on me. So I salute you. So, if you're an engineering student and you've watched this video to this point in time, I'm happy that you've engaged with my strange project of wanting to marry engineering and art. Let me know what you think of Jeff Koons' work below in the comments below. And also let me know if you'd like to know a little bit more about Jeff Koons and his practice and how he makes art, or if you've got suggestions for other artists that you'd like me to look at. I'm always open to suggestions. So remember, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode of this weird and wonderful venture that I call the art of engineering.